Deficit Commission. As you know, members of the President's Deficit Commission will unveil that revised plan to get the debt under control. The proposal is going to be presented by panel co-chairman Erskine Bowles and Alan Simpson. The vote, though, being delayed as the co-chairs try to build some consensus on the panel. Joining us this morning with more, Senator Gregg, member of that commission, ranking member of Budget, a member of Banking and Appropriations. Senator, good morning to you.
Carl, thanks for having me on. As always, I very much appreciate it.
Whole country's talking about it.
Should be.
What do you think about it?
I think it's good. I mean, you know, it's time to govern. We've had a lot of posturing, a lot of grandstanding, a lot of people saying if we don't do this, they won't support that. And the time has come to recognize the fact that if we don't take some action and we don't step up to this issue of getting the deficits and the debt under control, we as a nation will lose our prosperity and our security, and our children will end up with a nation of massive debt. And that's not fair, it's not right. One generation shouldn't do that to another generation. This is not the global solution. A global solution isn't within reach right now, but it is a major step in the right direction. It does reduce the deficit and debt over $4 trillion over 10 years and close that gap and start, instead of having the curve of national debt ratio to GDP going up and heading towards 100% of GDP, it flattens that curve out and starts to move it down to something that's sustainable. And it will be if it is passed by the Congress, it'll be a huge, I believe, a huge statement to the American people and to the world that we are serious about our number one domestic issue, which is the question of our insolvency.
So the chairman have your vote?
Yes.
What do they need to do?
Now, I'm not in favor of everything in this package. It's got warts, but you don't reach consensus in a constitutional government by getting everything you want. I mean, that's where I find it so outrageous that some of the interest groups around here, if they don't get it exactly the way they want it, they're against it. Well, that's not going to work in a constitutional form of government. Maybe in a parliamentary government you can get away with that, but you can't in our form of government, because our form of government requires bipartisanship. It requires that the American people believe that the product is fair, and they only believe it's fair if both sides of the aisle are supporting it.
So is there any amount of arm twisting, pleading, begging that can get us to 14?
Hard to say, but as a practical matter, I'm not even sure 14 is the necessary number. You know, when you look at this is really sort of the memo that should control the meeting, to use Henry Kissinger's words. It's a good template for the Congress to act off of. Now, either Congress has the courage to act off of this with presidential leadership, or it doesn't. And whether there's 10 votes, 14 votes, 16 votes, the template is a strong statement of how to get there. It's been done in a bipartisan way, and it's a package that would actually work were it put in place, and it's not draconian in any way. I mean, yes, it saves $3 trillion in spending, yeah, and we need to do that. We simply need to do that because we're spending a lot more than we can afford. And yes, it does raise taxes, but the way it raises taxes is in a very, I believe, Reagan-esque way, in that it dramatically cuts rates and creates a tax law which is much more oriented towards capital formation and using money to create money rather than investing money to avoid taxes.
Yeah. The tax increases don't bother you?
Well, they aren't tax increases, in my opinion. I don't argue them as tax increases. When you take the rates down, so your top rate is 21%, your middle rate is 15%, and your lowest rate is 8%, you eliminate the deductions and exemptions, you're creating, I believe, the level type of playing field in the tax policy where people will invest for the purposes of economic activity. And I think you're going to generate huge economic activity out of this. And yes, you're going to generate massive revenues, but it's going to be because there's a lot more economic activity.
Yeah. Senator Simpson said yesterday, "We will listen now in the next few days to the same old crap I've been dealing with in all my public life." So as people complain about the provisions in this proposal, Senator, is that going to get you discouraged, or do you think this can still have a meaningful vote on Friday?
Well, Carl, I think you understand, and certainly most of your viewers understand, that we are on an unsustainable path and we are headed towards a fiscal disaster. I mean, we don't know when it's going to happen, but at some point in the future, the market's going to lose confidence in the dollar, and we're going to go to a sale of treasuries, and it's not going to happen. And it's going to be, the date of that is unpredictable, but the certainty of it is there if we continue to run up these massive deficits and debt. It just simply, you cannot double the debt in 5 years, triple it in 10 years, and take us to a GDP ratio to debt of over 100%,
right,
and have a country that survives and is prosperous economically. So you can either step up and do this now, and this is a template for doing it, not solving the whole problem. This does not solve the whole problem. The problem is so big. But at least making the statement that you're willing to make the tough decisions as a government. You're willing to govern, which is exactly what we're supposed to do. This is the way to, this is a game plan for doing that, and hopefully it'll be taken seriously by the Congress.
Who else needs to step up? Someone earlier suggested
the president.
Well, the president could do it. Incoming Speaker Boehner could also commit to a vote. Would that make sense to you?
Absolutely. I mean, whether we get 10 or 14 or 16 or 18 votes, I would think it would be very constructive if the president said, all right, I don't like everything in this plan, which he isn't, because really it does do a major reduction in the discretionary side of spending. I mean, it's huge.
It's the president's commission, so he was pretty reasonable about when the first findings were released, Senator, but his party was not. At all.
Well, that's a problem.
Well, do you expect him to go against his party and say we need to consider some of this? And that's the leadership you're talking about? It'd be leadership against Nancy Pelosi and unions, everything else.
That's what you call leadership, isn't it? I mean,
I don't know. You're talking bipartisan, meeting in the middle, but really most of the problems are, we know why it's not going to go much further. Hopefully you can just out the side that isn't, going to cooperate. Why don't you, at least accomplish something, since none of this is ever going to happen?
Well, I'm not that cynical. I honestly believe that this plan is a constructive plan, and I do believe it has been put together in a way that should bring the people who are around here who really want to govern and who understand the seriousness of this problem. And I believe that includes the president. I believe it includes John Boehner. I believe it includes Mitch McConnell and Harry Reid and Dick Durbin. They understand the seriousness of this problem. They understand that they don't do anything.
You barely get out those last. You can barely get out those last two. Your first three, I believe.
Actually, not.
Really?
Actually, no. Dick Durbin's been on this commission. He's been a hard worker. He understands this problem. He's been extremely constructive. I think people like Senator Durbin from Illinois and Republicans like Tom Coburn, who will be here next year, are the type of people who can lead us to a
You'll get a yes from Durbin,
action.
then, you think? He'll be part of the 14.
I can't answer that question, but
you don't have any idea.
Are you actively trying to procure those votes on your own?
It's not my job. I talk to them. I tell them why I'm for it, and hopefully they listen.
What do you mean it's not your job? Leadership?
I'm not the chairman, but I do talk to them and tell them why I'm for it and give them my 2 cents, and hopefully they put that in the mix as they make a decision. Yes, I have talked to them.
The senator from Wyoming had it right.
What
was his quote?
The same crap. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The same old
crap. You mean Alan Simpson?
Yeah.
Well, Alan is a refreshing voice around here, and people should listen to him because he's right.
That's why we have a great country.
What happens around here is the interest groups pick one item in a very complex package and say, if you don't correct that item, we're against the whole package. Well, you cannot kill the good in the name of the perfect, because you're never going to get perfect in our form of government. What you're going to get, hopefully, is a major step towards getting our country's fiscal house in order, which is what this proposal is. And if you don't do it now, really, if you don't do it now, when are you going to do it?
Yeah.
As Reagan said.
The report, by the way, you'll be able to get beginning at 9:30, I believe, at fiscalcommission.gov. And it's titled The Moment of Truth. That's my understanding. Senator will be watching closely all week long. Thanks for coming on the program, Senator John Gregg. Don't we love having him?
Yeah, we do. I'm going to sign him up, I think, when he's finished. Right?
Let's hope.
He won't have to do anything else with what he gets when he
Not with what we're going to pay.
No kidding. Coming up.